This is an extract from the Leader podcast by the Evening Standard, hosted by me, David Marsland. To hear the whole thing, search for us on your podcast provider. The number of cyclists killed on Britain's roads in the first month of lockdown was double the average normally seen, and that's despite fewer cars on the roads. As restrictions lift, cycling is surging, and so are concerns about safety. The Met Police is now vowing to impose a new clampdown on dangerous driving, and our editorial column says it's a welcome move.
Survey after survey has shown that worries about safety are a deterrent to a significant number of people who might otherwise be tempted to use two wheels to get around. In response, the Met has told the Evening Standard that it is stepping up its enforcement action against speeders, and it is looking to prosecute, fine or give words of advice to other motorists who put lives of cyclists at risk. It also wants the public to help by submitting headcam or dashcam footage whenever reckless driving is spotted. We urge people to respond and come forward with footage as requested. Lockdown gave a vision of a less polluted, more pleasant city that a cycling revolution can help to preserve. It must be delivered.
Well, joining me now is our Home Affairs editor, Martin Bentham. And Martin, the Evening Standard has been highlighting the cause of cycling for a few days now. It's interesting to see that the police are getting right behind them.
Yes, it is, absolutely. What it's doing is saying that it wants to tackle ever more robustly, really, dangerous driving on our roads in London. Some of that's about speeding at vastly excessive speeds, which obviously affects everyone. More specifically to do with cyclists, which include dangerous overtaking, close passing where somebody comes far too close to a cyclist, and that type of conduct, and actually sort of general aggressive driving that's designed to sort of harry and make life unpleasant for cyclists. There's a small number of motorists who behave that way, not very many, but there are some. And so what the Met is saying is that they want obviously to make our roads safer. There are more people dying on the roads every year than there are from things like terrorism and so on. It remains a problem, and it remains unfortunately a problem for cyclists. There's been a death recently in Newham, another man critically injured recently in Catford, and unfortunately these incidents still occur.
And the police are also asking for cyclists' help. They're hoping that people will use these kind of GoPro cameras on their helmets, aren't they? Which can be quite useful in evidence in court. Well,
this is one of the most interesting things. In fact, what's happened is that the Met is saying that cyclists with their headcam footage, motorists with dashcam footage, if they see anything untoward in front of them, that they should then pass that on to police, and the police will take enforcement action. They say that there's been a vast increase in that type of footage being submitted to them. Obviously, a vast number more people have got that type of device, and that they're taking enforcement action in about 2/3 of the cases when they can track down the culprit and find out what they've done. And that can be obviously things like prosecution, fines. It can also be words of advice, as they describe it, education, warning them that they've done. Because some people who do these things are just being careless and not thinking enough. But as the Metropolitan Police Detective Superintendent Andy Cox, who's the head of road safety, said to our paper today, this could be a game-changing thing, because, of course, traditionally, motorists have looked around, thought there's no police officer around, no police car visible, I can drive a bit faster, or whatever it might be. Clearly now, if the feeling is that at any point there could be somebody with a bit of video footage capturing what you've done wrong, then that might alter the mentality of at least some people who are prone to deliberately go and behave in a stupid fashion in their car.
Martin, you're a cyclist yourself. Do you feel safe when you're out on the roads?
Well, I don't worry about it too much. Obviously, you think about it, but then I'm maybe not typical. There are certainly plenty of people. There obviously are occasions where you think that the situation is problematic. There are certainly road junctions, and I mean, I try to avoid busy roads. I try to avoid major roundabouts where it's very hazardous to go around them for obvious reasons, and people turning off and coming across you and that type of thing. So to a degree, if you can, and I usually can, the routes I tend to take allow me to avoid some of the worst places in London, but there are plenty of pretty hideous spots that need to be addressed, frankly. And this is obviously part of it, that there are plenty of surveys around showing that quite a lot of people who would like to get on their bikes, theoretically, are put off by the risk. I think sometimes when people actually get used to cycling, that risk, that sort of fear disappears. But obviously, it's a big obstacle to people getting on their bikes. And therefore, it's important both that the police are tackling problematic driving, but also that better facilities are put in place for cyclists, in particular cycle lanes, routes that are segregated from the traffic so people aren't going to encounter cars, and in particular large HGV vehicles, which are the most lethal things. And important that more of those segregated lanes put in place, and that also they connect so that they don't sort of run along a route and then stop halfway and put people into a dangerous situation. There need to be routes that people can actually use on a practical basis, link into each other, create a proper network, and have a really bold vision of how you can deliver a framework of cycling and cycling roads and networks that people will actually be confident to use in sufficient numbers to make this city a greener, healthier place. Because of course, cycling helps to promote individual health. It helps promote everybody's health by reducing the amount of pollution in the atmosphere from people being in their cars. So all of those things are conducive to a better life, as we saw at the start of lockdown, of course, when the roads were clear of traffic and the only people out and about, more or less, were people cycling around or walking around, and life was unpleasant in other respects, but very pleasant in that respect.